Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on what part of the world you're in. Welcome to today's session. My name is Peter Brimstone, and I am one of the international officers in the North America team at Queen's. We're delighted this evening to be joined by a fantastic panel made up of Dr. Dominic Bryan, who will be chairing the event, and three of our current students. I'm going to ask Dr. Bryan to come on to use his formal title. Just to introduce yourself, Dom, and say a little bit about yourself, your background, and take it from there.
Hi everybody. My name's Dr. Dominic Bryan. I am a disciplinary lead at Queen's University in anthropology. I'm a social anthropologist, and I work and have done for 20 years in the School of History, Anthropology, Philosophy and Politics. And I'll tell a little bit more about my experience and my knowledge in Northern Ireland, but I work on identity and politics in Ireland and Northern Ireland, and I particularly work on what we call conflict transformation. I look at how we deal with areas with deep-seated conflict and how we the way we might use politics and symbols and rituals to move us to a different place. But I can talk a little bit about that. That I think what we need to do next is introduce everybody else. So who wants to go first? Megan, do you want to go first?
Sure, why not? Hi everyone, my name's Megan. I'm a postgraduate student in the School of Law. I study human rights law, and I'm from Virginia. I started my Queen's journey a long time ago, actually. I did undergrad here, and I did a degree in international politics. And I've been here ever since. Northern Ireland can't get rid of me. So I'm really excited to chat to everyone and answer as many questions as I can about studying here.
Yeah, we learned a few minutes ago that I had in fact taught Megan many years ago, and yes, she's still here, which I suppose is something anyhow.
Didn't scare me off, so that's a good thing.
And then we've got Madeline there.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hi. My name is Madeline. I am a current PhD student in the School of Biological Sciences. I am working on parasitology-based stem cell research. Originally, I am from Illinois, close to St. Louis, Missouri. And I've been here for a long time as well, actually 6 years as of September 4th. I did my undergrad here in biological sciences, and then I did a master's in parasitology and pathogen biology, and then I moved home for about 4 months and then came back here, and Belfast can't get rid of me either, so everybody's stuck with me. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to chatting to you guys and hopefully helping you out with some questions that you might have and about my experience and everything like that, and the beauty that Northern Ireland is, because I absolutely love this place. It is so nice. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Brilliant. And our third student here is Madison, which may make you wonder whether Queen's actually only take on students that with names begin with M. I promise you we wouldn't discriminate in any such way. We actually take students with names beginning with any letters from the alphabet. But Madison, you go ahead.
So with that wonderful introduction, thank you, Dom. My name is Madison. I'm originally from just outside of Kansas City, Missouri. I did undergrad in Pennsylvania. I have a degree in creative writing and one in religious studies. And then I was a teacher for 4 years, so in the US and over in Indonesia as well. And then I came here. So I just finished my master's in conflict transformation and social justice. So in the same school that Dom is a teacher in. And it was absolutely incredible. And I did my dissertation on at an intersection of military studies and gender studies. And yeah, so I'm super excited to be here with you guys and answer any questions you've got. I've only been here a little over a year now. So I am the baby in Northern Ireland. So I will take that title proudly. But yeah, I'm excited to help you guys out.
So we might as well, since you're up, Madison, why don't we start with you? And why don't you tell us, when we do a circle, I'll come around and tell people a bit about how I ever ended up here, because for those of you that can't spot my accent, despite the fact that I lived here for 35 years, I still have a horribly English accent. without being judgmental on myself. Madison, what was your experience, at the beginning of coming to, was there a reason you chose Queen's and chose Northern Ireland? What was your experience when you got here?
Yeah, so during undergrad, so in fall of 2013, I studied abroad down south in Limerick, Ireland, for a semester and absolutely loved it. And while I was there, I had a weekend trip up to Belfast for the first time and got here and just fell in love with the city immediately and didn't want to leave. And I got back to Limerick, and one of my professors there proceeded to tell me, hey, they have this master's program that I think you would like eventually. So I've known since 2013 that I wanted to come here for this program. So it was specifically doing the conflict transformation and social justice was absolutely my number one draw. And then the more I looked at Queen's, the more I was like, everything about this school I really enjoyed. And especially I think in this department and doing like history, anthropology, politics, and philosophy for our school, there's so much overlap between all the subject areas. As you can maybe tell from a little bit of my history, I'm not great at picking one thing and sticking with it forever. That's just not my go-to style. So it's really nice to know that coming in, I was going to get to kind of pick and choose across classes, across departments. All of that has been great. And then, yeah, to echo what Madeline started to say earlier, just you get to Northern Ireland and you just fall in love with it. And it's hard to even think about leaving because it's such a wonderful place. And especially studying conflict in Belfast, like it's a literal walking case study. As you go to the grocery store, you're passing things that you've heard about in class and you've heard about in history books back like during undergrad. So there's all these different things added together, and it was definitely worth. I knew undergrad straight into postgrad was not on my to-do list. So after taking some time away, it was definitely worth the wait. I
might interrogate you a little later, Madison, on what you loved about Belfast, because it's not the prettiest city in the world. So don't go there. I'm going to come back to that. So think about why you love Belfast when really, it's not immediate. We're not Vienna, I think it has to be said.
Yeah.
Madeline, do you want to say a little bit about what it was like when you got here and how come you've stuck here so long? And then maybe a little bit about what you do and what you study as well.
Yeah, no bother. So originally when I had first decided to come here, it was a bit random, actually. I decided within 1 month time span that I was going to move here instead of Los Angeles. So it was a bit of a shock to me.
Belfast or Los Angeles? That's
quite,
I know. So presumably you chose us for the weather.
Oh yeah, exactly that. Rain, I just love the rain. No, but I originally did 2 years of university in the States, close to where I live. And I met a study abroad student who was actually from Belfast, and his brother was a leukemia researcher out at Queen's. And so I had studied biological sciences back home as well. And I was going to transfer to LA, do the 2 more years for the undergrad study. But then I just thought, I've always wanted to move to the UK. I could try and just apply. I didn't think I would get into Queen's, and I did ending up getting accepted. And so I came here, did my 3 years of undergrad here, and then when I started doing biological sciences here, I didn't really know what field I really wanted to go into. But then through my time here during undergrad, I met some really good professors that are really into parasitology and pathogen biology. So that is why I ended up returning during my master's, is because this university is really good for pathogen-based studies, and they actually do cross collaboration with Washington University in the States, which is close to where I live in St. Louis. So I decided I would come back here, and then I tried to move back home for 4 months, and Northern Ireland couldn't keep me away, and I came back here for my PhD, and I absolutely love the place. It is so beautiful here. I actually am on the weekends. I'm a tour guide for Game of Thrones.
Are you?
Yeah, I got in addition to being involved with, of course, my PhD and everything like that, Northern Ireland has a lot to offer, which is outside of science for me as well. So I do a lot of extras work. I was actually in Game of Thrones.
Oh, brilliant!
Extras, so you can.
Yeah, the amount of Queen students who are in Game of Thrones. Basically, if you took them out, there'd only have been 4 characters left.
Yeah, this behind my wall here is actually some things from Game of Thrones, like that's the tree leaf and everything like that. So I absolutely love Game of Thrones, and I met George R.R. Martin. But anyways, that's like a whole, I can talk about that for ages. But Northern Ireland has so much that I decided to return, and I couldn't resist being in a place that's so good for science in terms of what I want to do in career-wise, but also in terms of my like extracurricular hobbies. So I really love that. And in terms of what I do, my PhD is based on fascioliasis, so that is liver fluke. It affects humans and animals. It's the #1 pathogen in animals in the UK abattoirs. But I am looking at combating resistance to the drugs through use of stem cell research, which is not really very well known in parasitology-based studies. So that is currently what my PhD is on. So it's very novel, but it's interesting because it targets both what I want to do in terms of like it's animal medicine based and human medicine based. So it provides me with a wide range of things to study, and there's potential to go on.
And do you have funding for that? Do you? You get funded for that PhD?
Yeah, I had to apply for because I was classified as an international student. Originally, when I came here, I was on a visa, an American visa, but then 2 years into my undergrad, I realized I could get German citizenship. So that was a surprise to me as well. Didn't know I could get that, but I got that. So that is something that if anybody, yeah, we can talk about it later.
Yeah.
But that's a surprise. So I have dual nationality.
Brilliant.
But yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm losing track of where we were.
We've all done crazy things to try and get into universities and get grants and various things of that. So it's all part of the, it's all part of the game. I also am tempted to try and explain to everything, for those listening who follow their Game of Thrones, how actually part of King's Landing is at the moment sitting in the middle of the shipyard down in and with all of the, I don't want to give away the end. Frankly, if you haven't watched it all, just get on with it, because I'm sick of not giving away the end. But the dragon burn marks all over it, sitting in the middle of this sort of post-industrial site. In the middle of Belfast, quite bizarre.
So random, because originally when that was first going on and stuff, they had everything boarded up. Because I was in that scene, that's where you can see me, like right next to the Hound and everything like that. Like I have a picture, and you can see me directly on camera, but I just don't really look like myself. But like I'm directly on camera. And when we were filming,
what, you weren't wearing jeans then or anything like that? No,
they put me.
They didn't make that mistake.
No. I was a wildling for season 8, and then I was a northern female, and then a King's Landing lady. But for the one that you can really see me on is the King's Landing lady, and you really couldn't recognize me for that. But they had the whole thing boarded up. But now it's like you can just walk past, and it's like a tourism thing. You just walk right past. You're like, oh, well, there was probably one mad keen fan of it who spotted you and said, "Hang on a minute, she was a wilding in series 3." I know. I mean, the makeup that they do, I didn't even recognize myself. I walked past. I'm like, gosh, scare me. But
that's brilliant. We'll come back.
I know.
Come back to that.
Okay.
Megan, so how about yourself? What brought you over here, and what was your experience? What's been your experience, and why Belfast, why Queens?
So I've had a really long, relationship with Northern Ireland and Queens. My mum's from here. She grew up on the North Coast. So I did have that initial relationship. I remember I was
Which part of the North Coast? Let's get details here.
Coleraine.
Oh, I love Coleraine.
It is gorgeous.
That's where I started. Well, I'm not sure it's good. I'm not Coleraine itself isn't that gorgeous, but
maybe the places around Coleraine are really nice.
Portrush or Portstewart, and the Causeway, that beach on Portrush. I'm telling you, that's my favourite beach in the world. A castle at the end of it, long sweeping sands. It's freezing most of the year, but it's beautiful. So Coleraine, good. Sorry, go on, Megan.
No, so I think I was probably around like the age of 10 or 13 or something, and we had taken a trip to Belfast for the day, and I walked past, of course, the iconic Lanyon building, and I was like, oh, what's this place? My mom told me it was a university, and I'm like, okay, I'm coming here. I want to live near my granny, and this place looks amazing. So I only applied to Queen's in my high school year. I didn't apply to any other university. I was dead set on coming over to study international politics and conflict. For a lot of the same reasons that Madison had talked about, like the fact that this is such a place full of a wealth of information and experience, and I can really learn from people and grow alongside the communities. And I mean, it's been such a fantastic experience as a student, as a young person, as someone who aspires to, continue along the path of learning and academia, I've always found something to do. Belfast, like I know we've mentioned, Belfast may not be the most beautiful city. However, there's so much to do, whether you're into art and music, a lot of concerts, a lot of concerts in the park, as well as art exhibits. It's a real place for the youth. They're really building up a lot of community and a lot of activism. If you're interested in those sort of things, like myself, taking part in marches and demonstrations for human rights. That's my course. And just really getting involved. And it's so easy to, whether it's through the university and the societies, or just walking along the street and you see something going on and you just walk up and you start chatting away. I mean, it's easy enough to get so involved. And it took me this like shy little bookworm of a person at 18 years old into someone who is not afraid to step out of her shell and be a lot more independent. And that's really what Belfast did for me. It's not too big, so I wasn't too scared, but it gave me enough stuff to go and explore and do.
It's funny because Northern Ireland and eventually Belfast, in a way, gave me a stepping stone. I'm lucky enough to visit the US and Canada very, very regularly. In fact, the last 20 years, I'm probably there twice a year. And in a sense, Northern Ireland gave me the stepping stone the other way. I was going nowhere in life in London, and selling. I don't think quite legally selling stuff off the back of a van on what we would call the grey market. If anybody wants to look up a show called Only Fools and Horses on the internet, you'll see the sort of work I did. Anyhow, needed to get out of that, had no good qualifications, and Northern Ireland in the 1980s was going through something we know as the Troubles of the Conflict. And the only university that had me is our sister university, the University of Ulster. And I started doing anthropology there, and I absolutely loved it, and ended up doing a PhD here and looking at parades and demonstrations, of which we have a lot. You have to say Northern Ireland's a very politically active place. There's always stuff happening to be interested in. Mm-hmm. As I suppose we deal with the politics of either being in people who feel that we should be in Ireland or people that we should be in the United Kingdom. The irony is it also covers us with a few advantages, is that we're in both places. So you get plenty of Ireland and plenty of access to the United Kingdom as well. And for me, I was around doing ethnographic fieldwork as an anthropologist right through the peace agreement, so the peace process in Northern Ireland. All the talks were going on, and I happened to pick as my research topic when I was doing a PhD parades, and there were lots of parades disputes, and I ended up advising governments and things on this sort of stuff, even while I was doing my PhD. And it just took me from, bluntly, the streets of London to the most amazing things that I was doing in Northern Ireland, but then getting to do it in America. I mean, the invites I get from Washington and places like that are just fantastic. And I'm still in awe every time somebody sends me an invite, or I get an invite to go over to Canada and the US to do something. I'm still in awe whenever I arrive in the US, and I'm still incredibly excited. And for me, and I got a job at Queen's in 99, so I've been here just over 20 years, and it's just a lovely place to work. It's a really, I've never been here as a student, so I was always a member of staff, but I always liked it as a member of staff. I always liked it as an easy place. I always liked the colleagues that I worked with, which is a good thing. And I also ran a summer school for 18 years. I was director of the summer school, so I've had literally hundreds and hundreds of students from Canada and the US, many of which I'm still friends with on Facebook. So I have loads of connections. So and also I think another thing to say about Belfast is its size. It's not a big city. It's a couple of 100,000 really but it's a city very easy to get to know. And to get across. So Madison, I'm going to go back to you now and say, explain to me why you like Belfast, since it's not the prettiest city on the planet. It's a bit industrial, bit Victorian. Why Belfast?
Yeah, and it's funny too, because I have this tendency to fall in love with cities where other people are like, it's all right, or like, I like it, but it's not the prettiest. So I lived in Jakarta before this.
Been to Jakarta. It scared the shit out of me. Jakarta.
Tiny bit of a change.
It's huge.
A little bit, yeah. So I was there for 2 years before coming back here. And I think it's funny. So I've been, not in a bragging way, just in like a contextualizing way. I've been to like nearly 40 countries. And just like traveled loads and done lots of different things in lots of places. And this island is by far my favorite place that I've been. And there's just something, I think the people here, first of all, are like just such a huge draw. And especially, again, studying what I study, and being from the Midwest, where for better or worse, we can chat with anyone at any time. You pop into a cafe meaning to do a couple hours worth of research and reading for classes. And next thing I knew, I'd be chatting with some guy for 90 minutes because he wanted to chat about his experience after the troubles growing up as a kid at that time. Like, there's just all these different things that you're able to get from people here, that people are just so happy to have these conversations. So the welcoming atmosphere in Belfast is amazing. And I'm also a little biased. Like, I think Belfast is pretty in its unique way. I think it's sort of like, in spite of having rainy weather and in spite of when you get down to the river, you're like, okay, it just dropped like 5 or 6 degrees automatically just being down there. Like, you're looking around and people are just constantly trying to make it look prettier and more welcoming. And I think that's the spirit of Belfast that I like the most, where it's just this constant attempt to improve and attempt to always be getting better. And you just like, you feed off it. And I'll also echo what the other ladies have said a little bit, where the size here, I think, is perfect. Like, I lived in Boston and I really enjoy the size of like Boston and Kansas City, where you might run into people, but you're also definitely going to see new people as you're going around. So it's that nice middle ground. And that's absolutely the case here. And you start to get sort of your favorite pubs, your favorite cafes, your favorite spots of the city to walk around. But then there's always so many other areas you can explore. So it's also a very accessible city around the place, but it's not too small, not too big.
I think for me, I've thought about this a lot. I mean, I'm a lover of the big city. I'm from London. I thought Jakarta was amazing. New York is my favorite city in the world. I've had all my visits to New York are just incredible. But Belfast is the right size. It's a city with enough going on, but you always get to know people. So you can't really walk into the centre of town or walk around Queens without knowing people. And I've always loved that. I always felt Belfast is about the right size city for both being friendly but having all the things that a big city should have to offer.
Yeah, and everyone's also just a couple degrees separated. So it's, hey, I'm interested in doing this volunteer thing, and the professor you ask might not know, but they're like, oh, here's 3 people that can help you with that. And like, that's the case socially and academically everywhere in this city. Like, people, if they don't have the answer, they know like 5 other options who will have the answer for you.
Yeah, Madeline, I was wondering
I was going to say, so that's a good point for me to dive into our first question from the audience, which is kind of in around this area. And thank you to everyone who is sending in questions. We are taking note of absolutely all of them, and we will insert them at the right moment. But this one was about, it's a very human thing. It's what tips do you have on making friends and finding a community in Belfast, particularly at a time like this, where maybe you're coming in, for students who might be coming in January. What would you do to meet new people at Queen's? What would you do to meet new people in the community? How do you find your people?
Well,
through that,
I think this place is very easy to do that. Is my feeling. But why don't I go to Madeline? Madeline, what do you think on that? How easy do you think it is?
Oh, in Belfast, it's really, really easy to meet people. That's actually part of the reason as to why I moved back here. I was going to touch on that subject earlier. But when I kind of moved here, I'm from a small town in Illinois, and very, very small, didn't have really any independence before I moved here. And Belfast really, really taught me that. Even before moving here, it sounds silly, but I was from such a small town. We don't have like much public transport. So I didn't even really know how to get on the bus and not be scared of it. And when I first came here, I was terrified. Like, I didn't understand the concept. Like, I understood it, but it just scared me to push the button on the bus, you know. So then what I did was I didn't push the button, and then I just ended up in the country, and the guy had to get me a bus back. But they were so kind. I was like, is this Cranmore Park? And he was like, no, honey, you're in the, you know, in the somewhere out and way out there. And I was like, oh gosh. So he ordered me a private bus, and I got back. But on that note, everybody's so friendly here. Like, you can go and make a friend, like, even just going to the shop or something like that. Everybody always be like, oh, sure, how's the day? And like, you know, going on the taxi. And part of the reason as to why I moved back here was because people are so friendly, and they really get you out of your comfort zone, and they make you like kind of, well, they don't make you talk, but you really get into your own kind of way, and they'll ask you how you are. And I think finding friends is very, very easy, because everybody does kind of chat here a lot. And it's actually such a cool thing about Belfast, is that it's like a hidden gem for me, is that I find a lot of people are actually like, Belfast is like, it's not a place a lot of people think of, but in terms of like, there's really quite cool things that come out of here. Like, it surprises people a lot, of course, like Game of Thrones and stuff. Like, you wouldn't think Belfast, why Belfast for Game of Thrones, but ended up here, and I made amazing friends through that. But then also I've met so many people from like, there's a really huge band called Brockhampton, if anybody knows about them. There's a guy actually named Kieran, he's on that. He's part of it, and they've played on SNL and everything like that. But you wouldn't think Northern Ireland, like, there's a guy, and I met him right before he kicked off to go to Brockhampton, and now I'm like, oh, there's Kieran on SNL. What's that about? Okay. And there's like so many things. Like, there's just Belfast is so much fun, and it's just a wee hidden gem to me. So
there's a strange thing about this place. Because as many of you might know, that we had 30 years of violent conflict here, and we still do have deep divisions. And I was once asked, and if it wasn't for the birth of my first daughter, I would have ended up on TV, where they ran a program called Why Are We So Friendly, which I thought was a strange program to make locally when we had been in 30 years of conflict, when you know, about 3,500 people were killed in the violence. So this was a significant conflict, and yet they were going, why are we so friendly? So I'm tempted to go to Megan. How would you answer that question, Megan? How would you answer? How come it's so friendly and still a divided society at the same time? Come on, you've been here long enough.
How come we're so friendly? I think because we weren't so friendly, we would just complain about the weather even more.
Okay,
we got to do something else. I do think it is just, as sort of been touched upon, you know, that everybody knows somebody in a circle that you might have heard of, or you sort of know. I mean, that's been something I've been experiencing since I've been born, being in Coleraine, or being up here in Belfast. Just, I always find out that someone I'm studying with, someone I'm in the coffee shop with, somehow knows someone I know. And I think a big thing for me whenever I started undergrad, and even I was in Glasgow last year doing a research degree, so I came back as well this year. And of course, that was in the midst of a pandemic, and making friends. I mean, it is a bit difficult, but in the same sense, your classmates are all going through this as well. And it's a lot of people make group chats, which I do. I mean, my group chat's going off right now about something. And the Students' Union are still putting on society stuff, like whether it's quizzes or lectures, things like that. Well, I say lectures, you know, like little guest seminars on topical things going on. And I think everyone just has such a great sense of humor, like whether it's dry, sarcastic, dark, like everyone has something to laugh about, or each other. And that for me is such a big thing. And so I would have, you know, in relation to, as you were saying, Dom, about the conflict and the legacy of conflict, a lot of students and a lot of friends I've lived with, I've gone to the pub with, they're from different communities, and they might have never met if they hadn't gone to university together. And then they build up this relationship, and then they joke about things, you know, they make fun of one another, or just poke fun. And at the end of the day, it's this culture of just, you know, we've been through so much, and yet we still have something to smile about because we have each other. And that's a big thing. I think that permeates a lot of Belfast, whether it's art or dance or comedy. It's the ability to look at oneself and find something to laugh about, as well as to just really come together and sort of like a form of joy, whether it's inebriated or not.
And it does. I mean, we should go on, Peter.
So I was just going to say that's a good point again to throw in another question. You will see a pattern to my emergence on this chat is normally if things start steering in the direction of things I need to ask. And really in terms of that environment, and particularly talking about post-conflict society, there have been a couple of questions in there about essentially how that translates into the learning environment. So for programs like conflict transformation, for programs like MA anthropology, which has been asked about in the chat as well, it's how being in Northern Ireland, I guess, accentuates those programs, how it makes them stand out, and how that translates in the classroom, the people and the experience here. And I think we certainly have three very good people and a biologist who can probably talk to that.
Well, Madison, we wouldn't go anywhere near the outskirts of Belfast. I mean, I wouldn't take you on a walking tour right through the interfaces of Belfast at any point, would I? I wouldn't do something like that, would I?
You mean what we literally just did on Saturday?
Yes.
You mean that? Yeah, it's funny too, because like before coming here, I thought it was going to feel a lot more like, oh, I'm in this area, I need to behave this way, that kind of a thing. But as you're going around, it's very much what Megan was touching on there, where it's like everyone, especially with younger generations, everyone is like, hey, we're happy you're in our community. Especially the moment I open my mouth, they're like, you're obviously not from here. So it's just that easygoing conversation that comes up where you're walking down the city and you're walking past a peace wall. And for me still, even after being here, so I just finished my master's, like I said. So COVID hit in March of my year of my master's. So like half of it was quote unquote normal and half of it was COVID life. And so even having spent like 7 or 8 months where I was walking around the city every single day, and I'd have a peace wall on my left and you see a house over on the right and kids playing outside because it's normal. And that's just how things are. And I think it definitely accentuates the degree program and what you're hearing about in class, because it's not just this theoretical thing you're hearing about. Mm-hmm. So I took a module called Legacy of Conflict in my first term. And we're talking about things in class where then I would literally be out at the pub, like my usual Monday night music session that I like to go to. And people would be talking about things that just natural conversation that ties directly into what I learned in class that day. Like it's not, you don't even have to try and get it to support what you're studying because it just naturally does. So it's really neat too. Like Dom brought up his walk. I don't want to inflate your ego at all, Dom, but I think
any worse than it is already. Yeah,
exactly. But I think what's really nice too is like there's so much creativity happening right now. I'm sure at all universities, but like I've seen so much at Queen's where it's, hey, we understand that students aren't getting like what we're used to giving. So now how can we like implement that? So our department is doing these walks all over the city where academics are leading small groups, masked, socially distanced, as safe as possible. And you're going
And we should be back. Sorry
There
about technical issues as always.
I thought that was me.
Everybody panics. Everybody think it's them. Madison, your answer was too good, and you literally broke the internet.
I mean,
thanks for that.
I'll take it.
But we are back, and everybody is with us. I think Dom should also be with us. I hope.
He's back.
There he is. Luckily, I've written down all the questions, so it's okay. No, perfect. That was wonderful. And certainly, in terms of that academic environment, I think the message there is it is just immersive. You can't really escape it. And that, you know, there are the obvious tie-ins with the programs in around our humanities and things related to conflict. But I guess, Madeline, I would be interested in hearing a little bit about your experience, because obviously you're coming from a scientific background in that, and how, I guess, being in Belfast and the research you've been able to take part in and be a part of here has just been helped by the environment at Queen's and the relationship, particularly between you and your academic staff?
Oh yeah, no, no, definitely. I think it's in particular since my undergrad, when I first came here, like I said, like I mentioned before, I didn't really know what field I wanted to get into with biological sciences because it's such a broad field. There's so much you can do in it. And then during my third year, I took a course called Zoonotic Diseases, and in that, I met my professor that I currently am doing my PhD with now. And through that, then I did my master's. I became quite close with him alongside Nikki Marks, and they are quite world-renowned parasitologists. They do, even Angela Moosley, who she was teaching my master's as well. She was doing cross-collaboration with St. Louis, Washington University. And through that, then I got some good sort of, connections, and then that's why I chose my PhD that I did. But my professor really helped me in terms of getting the scholarship that I am currently on, because like I tried to mention before, I am on, although I have German citizenship, I am still considered an international student because I've not lived here for 3 years without academic purpose. So I am qualified as an international student. Because of that, then the PhD for me, I wasn't entitled to getting funding. I would have had to fund the PhD myself, but then Queen's offered a international sort of scholarship where if you applied for it, you had to do interview process and everything like that. But my professor that I had known from undergrad, then during my master's, he really helped me into learning what to do and all that sort of stuff for the scholarship application process, and that really helped me. And because of that, now I am on a fully funded PhD scholarship. So it's one of 3 in medicine and health life sciences. So there are globally funded sort of PhDs. So that is something that I was really drawn to Queen's about, because when you look on Find a PhD, I don't know if anybody else is having, oops, is that?
Yeah. we have lost her. So Find a PhD.com. So moving swiftly on, technology, isn't it a joy? There was another question that actually came through the chat there about finding work in Belfast, which I think actually was the direction Madeline was going in terms of talking about her research and the stuff she's been involved with. So Dom, aside from selling nefarious goods out of car boot, what would you think you would recommend?
Yes.
For work opportunities in Belfast?
I have left that behind. You won't get too many dodgy goods off me. Although I actually was just selling my old TV to a PhD student up the road, but that's another problem. That's another issue altogether. I mean, if you're a student, there's all the usual. I mean, there would be. We should perhaps talk about COVID in a minute and how we're dealing with COVID, because I think that is important. You can get a range of jobs within the university. All right. There's usually with your visa, and the others could probably give a better take on this. There's so many hours work you're allowed to do on your visa. Madison, is that right? Is it 20 hours or am I exaggerating it?
Yeah, it's 20 hours a week in full term time. So when you're doing full classes, it's 20. And then like once your dissertation, for master's students is my experience, once your dissertation's all done and you're finished being a full-time student, you get a letter, and then on your visa you can work up to 40 once you're fully finished with your studies. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, funnily enough, one of the other students I know has just got a job today with a women's aid group in Fast. She was just letting me know. And then there's a cafe culture which I smile at, really, because when I first came to Belfast, there was no cafe culture. I think it's one of the great changes in the world. When I first went, I went in and ordered a coffee. That was all you got, just a white coffee. Now, of course, when you go and buy a coffee, there's 30 other questions that come along with it. And half the coffees put up on the... but there's all of the full sort of cafe culture and bar culture in Belfast. So there's a lot to do. What the COVID situation has been like. I don't know. What do you think, Megan? How have you experienced that the last tricky 8 months?
It has definitely been difficult. For me, I had to move back from Glasgow and find accommodation. So that was my first hurdle. But I had a lot of good help from the Students' Union, and they have some people there who are able to like point you in the right direction for that sort of stuff. And I mean, isolation's hard. It's going to be hard for everybody and anybody.
It's hard, yeah.
But I found my lecturers and the Queen's staff have been constantly emailing and checking in and making sure, that we are all informed as to what's going on, whether, because we started off with a blended learning, so online and face-to-face. And obviously once things started getting a little worse, we all went all online. But the lectures have been really, really great about making sure there's still a great culture in the classroom, and even outside the classroom, able to get in touch with lecturers and other students. And for me, that's been the biggest thing during this lockdown. I can't go, I'm a very social person. I like walking around I don't like being home. If I can help it, I don't want to be here. I want to be out and doing stuff. And you can't, but it's really been things almost kind of like this setup, you're talking to friends, or you set up little quizzes, and like group chats have been such a big thing. And I think the best part is that it's been all facilitated through some medium of Queens, people that I know from Queens, and whether it's like there's a great group for girls in Belfast, young girls just trying to find new friends. So we're all students, and that's how I found out. I was invited by a girl I was on my undergrad with, and that's really been what's getting me through. And besides classes, of course, really having those regular classes and being able to see faces is really nice.
You're welcome to join us on one of our tours. I think I'm doing another one this Saturday.
Sure, why not?
So drop me a line. You're welcome. We take about 6 or 7. And we're doing North Belfast again next Saturday. You're welcome to join us on one of those. Madeline, now you're back with us. I was wondering how have you found dealing with COVID, both the sort of being stuck in your room and how the university has managed to try and communicate with everything.
Yeah, no, it's been very, very. I've known exactly the whole time exactly what was going on, especially with my laboratories. We've had weekly meetings between me and my professor, and then the other students who are also in my sort of field of research. So we do that over Teams. So that kept me throughout lockdown and stuff. But then my lab was actually approved to get back into working probably around June, July time. But it was all socially distanced, and that is still the case at the moment. So how we've actually combated having so many people in the lab, we only are allowed 6 at a time. And so what we've done is we've done alternating shift work. So some of us are on the 7 a.m. to 1 o'clock shift, and then it alternates, and then we go from 1 week at that time, and then the next week we'll be on from 1 to 5. And in that, then everybody's wearing, face masks, face shields, and then of course the necessary laboratory kind of equipment that we have, our standard lab coats and our gloves and everything like that. But we do have like weekly meetings. Queens has always updated me if there was any sort of issue regarding shutting down the university again, because there was that time that everything was shut down. But they did keep me informed as to when things were going to be up and running again. So it was never really an issue. And I always had work to do, actually, working from home in terms of like looking up research and doing my introduction for my thesis and stuff. So Queens always, yeah.
One of the ironies that I'm not sure if people realize from a teaching point of view is I had to learn a lot of online stuff very, very quickly, literally 2 weeks. So we were I'd run a MOOC before on public identity and public space, a sort of international course before. So I'd done a bit of online stuff, and I'd done a bit of video work and made videos about places and spaces in Belfast. But we all sort of had to we use Canvas. I'm sure some of the people out there will be familiar with. We use Canvas at Queen's now, which luckily we went to full bore the year before last. Otherwise, we would have been panicking, but I feel like I've learned 25%, relearned 25% of my job in the last 8 months. It's like, well, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what I'm doing. I get up there and do my lecture. All of a sudden said, you can't do that anymore. You've got to do it all online. So it's been a bit terrifying. But what that does mean, which I think is a little bit of an irony, is we've all refreshed our courses. So what I think students are actually getting this time that they wouldn't have done is that we've had to look at every one of our courses. We've had to break them all down, work out how we fit them on Canvas, how we do videos, look at our PowerPoints. Can we get this on? So ironically, I think you can't deny that everybody's going to miss the networking that you get. You know, at the moment, what you are getting is very refreshed courses.
Yeah, because I mean, even I do on top of the PhD, I would be I signed up for this semester to do demonstrating roles. So normally before COVID, I did some demonstrating for the undergrad students. So during your practicals and stuff like that, you would have of course the professor who's teaching it, and then you have usually PhD students, maybe about, depending on the size of the class, you would have around 12 or something, and they would also help kind of teach the practicals. But because of COVID, I originally did about 2 or 3 weeks of teaching in person with the students, but then we had to switch on to online based. So now we're still doing the practicals, so we're still running them. And I just sent out an email yesterday to around 40 students that I've been allocated. And from that, then I sent them to let them know that they're going to send me their practical reports. And so I'm learning how to grade practical reports and converse with students and try to help them as best I can over email and everything, which is a bit hard with science-based things. You're kind of like, let me type all that out for you. But it's new. We're evolving.
We're all getting skills we didn't have 8 months ago,
Our
and I
CVs
suspect
are expanding.
they are expanding very quickly.
Yeah. We are. So
I mean, I think it's worth saying to people that it would be naive to suggest to anybody that we haven't struggled with the COVID stuff like everybody else has, and it would also be wrong to suggest that the student experience can be made actually the same, because it can't. It's not like that. But I think because we've all been in it together, I'm sure some students have found it harder than others, but I hope we've made up for it as much as we can by trying to get this online stuff going well. And I mean, I just as an example, I just took a class in anthropology where one of my PhD students took us on a field trip through Twitter. Now, I as an anthropologist, all my stuff was in the public space. I was looking at parades and flags and carnivals. That's what I do. Augusto, my PhD student, he does everything online, and he can take you a field trip through Twitter, which I have to say is quite a scary place. But he took all 20 of the students on Twitter, told them to put in things, and then asked them what they were finding and how it was working. He got us to put in White Christmas as a trending term. And it's it took me into a dark world of discussions. It's a complicated story involving a Christmas carol, a Pogue song, which has been parts of which has been banned, and White Christmas and race. Anyhow, it was fascinating. So we went on an online field trip through Twitter this afternoon.
Like a strange inquisitive spectre, I have appeared again in the corner with another fantastic question. And this is one that, Dom, you might be able to speak to particularly well, given that you teach across a few programs. But there's been a fantastic question about someone who, as a lot of us in this part of the world, is really interested in international relations and politics and all the things that involve. But Queen's has so many MA programs related to the subjects that they literally cannot choose. Like a kid in a candy shop, it is what. Yeah. So advice from you, Dom, from an academic perspective, but also maybe from some of our students about how do you choose a program, what to look for in a program, how do you find the right thing that aligns to your interests. And I have a little eye on the clock. We have just shy of 10 minutes left. So if there are any more questions, please do fire them in the chat box, but I will leave that one with you.
So I'd say the first thing is not to worry. There are no bad choices. All right, that's the first thing. There are only probably good choices. If you're interested in politics and international relationships, there's about 3 or 4 courses in our school. There's conflict transformations and international relations one. But if you look at the range of the modules, courses that are within the degree, you'll find some of them overlapping, and it's really just a matter of trying to work out the leaning which you have. So, for example, if you did the conflict transformation course, you would also be offered the module I do on anthropology, conflict in Ireland, which we do in the anthropology MA. And I know that my course is now going to be offered on some of the politics ones. So actually, it's more about just the core of what you want to do, because you will get quite a lot of choices in some of the MAs. And I would just say on that, if you are unsure, don't email me or email who looks after that course. I'm sure they'll have a chat with you about it, about which one you might prefer or which one would suit you better. But there are, the people in my school I always think are amazing. I often wonder how the hell I ever got hired, to be honest, when I look at how good some of the people are around me. So there are no bad choices, but do email and ask to chat to someone if you want to have a more detailed conversation. I don't know what Megan or Madison think about that, because you've both been involved in courses around that stuff.
I'd echo looking at, so in terms of language too, module is a class,
right? Good.
Fancy name for a class. So for example, doing the conflict masters, for me, I liked how open it was. So in the fall, I had 2 required classes, and the other one was completely up to me. And in the spring, all 3 were up to me from your list. Whereas I know other masters, it was sort of like students had like 5 required courses throughout the year, and then 1 that was sort of a free choice. So it's more of what you're wanting in terms of that, where you can really decide, is this one where I want to be able to pick and choose how I want to focus, or do I want a very focused degree in a specific area? So yeah, I think, again, like anytime that I've emailed a random professor, whether I have any relationship with them or not, I've gotten a great response back, and they've always been willing to have a chat, hop on a call. That's one thing that's nice now, is people are used to, oh, let's hop on a Teams call, let's hop on Zoom. Yeah. Like it's really easy to get face-to-face time. And then there's also, I know because I'm a part of it, there's an initiative that's on the Queen's website and different programs. As you look, it's called Unibuddy, and a little person's a student face with like their name and degree program will pop up in the bottom corner. My face is one of those on one of the pages. But you can shoot that student a message, and it literally comes to that direct student. So it's not like, you don't have to feel like, oh, it's a super professional professor, like how do I talk to them? You can just reach out to students that way too. So there's a lot of different ways to just holler at different people and get a response.
So you are a Unibuddy, are you, Madison?
I am a Unibuddy, yes. Guilty. That's one of my, to tie it back to jobs, that's one of my student positions that I have that I've still sustained virtually as well. So we're getting creative over here, that's for sure.
And Megan, the law school, which I know a little bit about myself because I've messed about in human rights law on and off. How have you found the courses there?
I really enjoyed it. It was definitely sort of hard to part with half school, but even saying that, a lot of lectures.
Well, we consider you a deserter, by the way, but anyhow, we'll go into that.
No, we do have a lot of the lectures, especially on human rights course. The biggest thing that I chose, the reason why I chose it, was because the course created this interdisciplinary link between traditional law and human rights, sociology, politics, anthropology. Sorry, you might see my cat. He's decided to come say hello. Go away. Go over there. Sorry about that. So that was my big thing, because my focus in my undergrad and all that was really on conflict and the politics of personhood and freedoms and thought. So for my course, that was the beauty of it. In the classes I'm taking, they're all centered around talking about, rights, how they some people might see them come in conflict. And we talk about women's rights, gender equality. We talk about climate injustice. We talk about
where the marshmallow sticks got put.
We talk about ways that people are able to access courts. So the way I sort of interpret human rights law, it's all about the study of people and the way people can use law or create law. And I found we have a lot of guest lecturers coming from the HAP school or coming from different areas of law school with different specialities. And that's the beauty of it, whether you do something in law, whether you do something in the HAP school, or really any other school. Picking the course does not limit you. So if you say pick the master's in politics versus the master's in conflict transformation, you will share modules. So you're able to pick similar things. And the focus isn't always, it's really what you can make of it. So for example, I was able to really focus a lot. I know it's ridiculous. I was able to, he's a little baby. He's like 5 months old, so he misses me. So we're able to pick dissertations and essay questions on your chosen topics. So in international conflict studies in undergrad, I was able to focus here in human rights. My focus in particular, I want to focus on sex workers' rights and the relationship between law and labor law and human trafficking. And that's because that's what I chose. Whereas I know people who are focusing on climate law. I know people who are focusing on prisoners and how do you transition from a conflict zone to post-conflict. And it's all really just, if you have a vision, you roll with it. If you don't, pick a myriad of classes and you'll find something that you're interested in. Is really, yeah, that's my approach. Sorry for the cat. That was a bit insane.
The cat was excellent. Highly recommend pets on webinars. Believe it or not, guys, that is it. We've been going for an hour. Time flies when you're having fun. All that. There is so much more left to say. I think we all agree we could sit here and probably chat for hours. But sadly, we cannot. But what I would like to say is a huge, huge thank you. First of all, to you, Dom. Thank you for coming along and facilitating. And for all of the work you do to support our students at Queen's. Thank you to our 3 wonderful students.
Brilliant.
What this is all about, and I'm sure Dom would agree, it's the reason.
Yeah, brilliant.
Is to work with students like yourselves. Thank you to my colleague Susan, who's been diligently tapping away in the chat box and questions and sending links and keeping on top of all of that. We will send around a recording of the session. We will also send contact details. If you have any more questions, I'm sure there are loads. If you want to talk about any of the programs and details, our academic staff are happy to. I see Megan has already popped her email in the chat as well, which I will send on. Please get in touch if you'd like to talk more. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Enjoy the rest of your day, and to my fellow panelists, go and maybe get your dinner down, because it's that time. But yeah,
take care, everyone.
Good night.
Yes, great chat, everyone. I had fun.
Bye. Take care, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
All right.